Hello, I'm Emile Buelet, founder of Bestpod and author of You're Not Broke, You're Pretty Rich, and you're listening to The Wallet. Every week we give you the best tips, guidance, and a good dose of inspiration and motivation to manage your money better. Last year's Money Matters Festival was a huge success, with hundreds of you showing up. This year, we're taking things to the next level and going bigger than ever before. Yes, it's stressful, but also on March 3rd at Coco in Camden, for an entire day filled with insightful money talks and engaging workshops, we'll cover a wide range of topics, from designing the life you want and deserve to rethinking the economy as well as investment strategies. You will hear from The Humble Penny, Claire Steele, Nafisa Bakar, Stephanie Sword-Williams, and so many others. We will of course be providing delicious lunch and drinks throughout the day, and you'll have a chance to mingle with a community of like-minded, inspirational women like yourself. Book your tickets via the Eventbrite link in the show notes. To celebrate the launch of the festival today, we're revisiting the key talk from last year's event. In this episode, you'll hear our panel discussing the main challenges when it comes to managing finances as women, the current economy, what can be changed, pension to wealth gaps, the structural issues, and what women are tirelessly doing to try and change the game. Isabel Berwick, host of the FT's Working It podcast and co-editor of Working It newsletter, is moderating the panel and asking questions to Romi Savova, CEO of PensionBee, Bev Shah, the City Hive, and Selina Flavius from Black Girl Finance. Remember that we are not certified financial advisors. Information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.
This is the talk about where do we stand today, women in the economy. There's a lot to talk about, I think you'll all agree, and it's wonderful to see you all here. My name's Isabel Berwick. I'm going to be joined by these three amazing experts. We're going to talk for about half an hour. To my immediate left, I've got Romi Savova. She is the founder and CEO of PensionBee. It's the leading online pension provider. She founded PensionBee in 2014 to simplify pension savings in the UK. And I used to be a personal finance editor. I know how complex pensions are, so thank you, Romi. It was following her own harrowing pension transfer. And she previously worked in investment banking, and she has an MBA from Harvard Business School, so she knows what she's talking about. Selina Flavius created Black Girl Finance. It's an award-winning financial coaching and training company for Black women. And Bev Shah, on my far left, is the founder and CEO of City Hive. It's a network for change. City Hive is a think tank and advocacy group that aims to build an inclusive and successful investment management industry. I'm going to start with a question for all the panelists. And I think we have to start this discussion with a mention of the turmoil we're in at the moment, the British economy, as well as the wider global trends. And I wanted to ask the panelists how they each feel about the economy and the investment outlook. How do we live through this chaos, Bev?
Look, markets are cyclical, and I spent the most of my career as a frontline investor. I started my career when .com went bust, and I lived through the credit crunch. It was painful. But also my tips would be, which in hindsight I wish I'd known back then, was this is a great opportunity. So if you know where you personally stand with your finances and you understand what your outcomes are that you're looking to achieve, like what are your different pots of money? Are you looking at your pension, for example? Well, most of you look like you're really young. And if whether you're 20, 30, 40, or even 50 in this room, you're not going to be retiring tomorrow. You know, there's a saying in the city that they always say, history does not repeat, but it rhymes. So yes, markets are cyclical. And this, for me, I see the current market as sale of the century. This is bargain hunting time. If you've got a small pot of money that you can put in, you will see that if that money is for your pension or for something in the future, this is a great opportunity at the moment. So don't get panicked by what you hear in the headlines or what you see. It's all aggregated news, and they want you to panic. This is time to keep your head on. And, you know, ladies, we know how not to kind of panic. Let's leave that to the white men in the city, all right? So that would be my tip. It's like, don't look at the headlines, look at your own finances, plan out what you want. And the only other thing I would say is, yes, there is a cost of living crisis coming. Be mindful of that as you head into Christmas, because none of us know actually what the bills will look like. And those bills aren't coming our way until next year. So just be mindful as we head into those periods where we do start to spend lots of money and then all of a sudden realize, it's maybe not going to be as bad as they think. Maybe it'll be worse, maybe it'll be better. But if you've planned for it, then you're in a really good place. And what you the word resilience, right? Well, that's what we are as ladies.
Yeah. And talking of resilience, we're talking cyclical here, but just very long term, we've long lived with pay gaps and ethnicity pay gaps at work, and that attendant knock-on effect on our pensions. Many of us have probably worked part-time when our children were small, that kind of thing. There are gaps everywhere. And I wanted to ask Selina particularly, why does that persist? And what do you think would, or perhaps what you all think, would really help to get things moving? And do you have any personal tips for the audience?
In terms of why the gaps exist, so on my platform, I talk a lot about the gender and ethnicity pay gaps, and there's so many other gaps that we could talk about. Obviously, we spoke about the housing gap earlier. There's credit gap as well for women in terms of kind of credit scores being lower, because sometimes we tend to put kind of loans and things in other people's names, not our own, or it could be just a cultural thing. And I think the reasons why they exist are because I think traditionally finance and the financial space was built for men. I feel like we're in a great place now, and that more women are building, banks and platforms that allow us to take control of our finances. At the same time, kind of the way the media markets kind of money to us as men and women is very different as well. So men are often taught about investment strategies, and women are told to, buy less shoes. So I think we really need to be mindful of kind of just what's going on around us, and some of those kind of thoughts and feelings about money that we've picked up over the years, just because the way kind of the system's built and it's marketed at us. I think what we can do is just, I talk about the gaps also. It's quite depressing, to be honest, talking about kind of pay gaps and ethnicity pay gaps, because these, they're caused by quite systemic and ingrained kind of histories. So it's going to take a long time to unpack them. But what we can do in the meantime is, if we are aware, just making sure as we go through our career, making sure that we're asking for those pay rises. And I was on an event yesterday, and someone mentioned the fact that they're a hiring manager and that women don't often, negotiate salary, whereas men always do. And then particularly women from diverse backgrounds, we're not doing that. So we need to do that. And then we also need to be really intentional with our finances. So what are we doing? Are we investing? Are we just simply saving, like we've been kind of taught and conditioned to do? So yeah, just being really intentional with what you're doing and with your finances, and as you navigate through your career as well, is a big thing.
Romi, what's the state of the pensions gap?
It's still pretty dire. So women at points in their lives can have £100,000 less in their pensions than men. And that is a really, really big number. And I think the reason why that number exists, why this gap is so incredibly wide, is because society is set up in a way that favors wealth accumulation for men over wealth accumulation for women. And what do I mean by that? I think that most of us will have experienced either the anxiety or the actual experience of having children. And for many of us, this is not really, it's not an optional decision, as some people will make it seem out. It is a decision that, most of us end up making as women. And the world is set up in a way to penalize us for that. So whether it's from the fact that we are the default parent and the parent who ends up staying at home if a child is sick, or the parent that goes through pregnancy because physically that is just what happens, or whether it's because there's part-time work afterwards, or whatever it is, the world is set up in a way that women do a lot of the free work that comes with childcare. It ends up being a woman's business. And I think when we modeled this, we thought, well, how do we change this? How do we actually close these gaps so that they don't exist? And there's two things. The first is pay equality. And I think if you are working somewhere, if you are an employer, this has got to be top of mind. Pay should be equal for men and for women doing the same work. So that I think is priority one. And that's still not the case when we look at the statistics. There's still a gender pay gap even now. And I think the second thing that we can do is enable men and women to work equal hours. Because even if we close the pay gap, actually the hour gap still means that women will have less in their pensions than men. And to do that, we need to share the responsibility of childcare. And if we don't do that, then it will never be equal.
Yeah, it goes a bit beyond the gap, doesn't it, Craig? But I wanted to take perhaps a more macro view. And Bev, I know you've done a huge amount of work to try to promote women and more diversity in positions of leadership in the city. How do things stand at the moment in terms of, women being at the top of organisations that are making these big decisions for us, and wider diversity inclusion in finance? What's the state of play, and are you at all optimistic?
I'm optimistic about the direction of travel and pessimistic about the speed. But I would say this, and it's less doom and gloom that maybe we've just said. It's less than 50 years since women were allowed to invest or in this country, and not personally invest, to step foot on the London Stock Exchange floor. That's 50 years. So we're talking about, actually, in that time, we are now sat in a room packed full of women who are interested in their financial future. And we have made huge strides, and that fills me with great positivity, because I don't feel like we've just got our foot in the door now. I feel like we've just rammed our shoulder in and we're about to blow it off. You have got firms here like Schroders, one of the largest asset managers in the world, and I have a lot of respect for them, who are sponsoring an event like this. 5 years ago, you would have had firms in the city sponsoring events for women that were for the wives of their high net worth clients, and it would have been a champagne reception at Harvey Nichols. That's the kind of visibility we got as women from the city. Now the city has recognised that we collectively are not a niche, but a revenue chain for them. At the end of the day, they don't have the low-hanging fruit of the patriarchal man at home who's going to make the decision. We're all going out to work. We may not be valued the same in society, but we are going out there and we're breaking down doors. So the direction of travel is there. And we just have to keep shouting. We just have to remember that we value ourselves. At City Hive, sometimes we call some of these gaps the kids' shoes and cushions gap. And that's because often in households, we put our money towards those things. I've got a traditional household. I'm married to a man, and I don't think he's once thought about what our house looks like and what our children are going to wear. It comes out of my salary pot, even though we've got a joint income. And I think those are the kind of things that we need to remember, that £100,000 pension gap will come from remembering that actually we don't have to pick up the burden of all of these things, that our future is important.
So just to pick up on that idea of, us as women, we as women having power, what should we do about our own personal ethical standards? Where should we put our money? How do we seek the right kinds of ESG, which I think probably many of you know has taken a bit of a beating recently. The idea of ESG being good per se as a thing seems to be being challenged. And Romi, I wanted to start with you. What do you advise clients? How can we use our money in the way that we best want to?
Well, we at PensionBee, we've very much been on a journey when it comes to how to invest pensions in a way that reflect our beliefs and also our desire for financial returns, because it is your pension and you have to be confident that you can get both of those things. And when we first started off, we had a plan, a product that would invest more of your money in companies that are aligned with Paris. However, it would still invest in oil companies, just the better ones, not the really, really bad ones, the ones that were promising that they would change. And the more we talked to our customers about this, the more they felt, well, I don't want to be invested in fossil fuels at all. And we scoured the market to try and find a pension plan that would help you be fossil fuel free, a mainstream product, and it didn't exist. So we went off and we built one in collaboration with one of the world's largest asset managers, PensionBee's fossil fuel free pension. And that is now available for individuals, for anyone who wants to invest their pensions in a way that doesn't support fossil fuel production. So that is certainly, the way that we do it. We listen to what our customers want and then we deliver it. And I think we are probably going to move one step further, because people increasingly want to be investing in companies that are not only not doing bad, but that are positively doing good. And that doesn't exist in a mainstream way in pensions yet. But I would say watch the space, because it's something we hear from our customers they really want and is coming very soon.
Selina, what do you hear from your clients about how they want to invest their money?
I think it's the same thing. I don't know if it's just been a bit of a kind of sea change over the past few years, but everyone does want to invest. They want, particularly with my community, they want to support, Black founders or, companies that treat their kind of employees well. And it is, one thing that we do is just steer them towards those platforms that allow them to be able to do that. So that's how we kind of help, because we don't do the kind of financial advice. We don't have a platform that we can direct people to, but we always just encourage them to, do the research, because there's lots of kind of ethical companies out there that you can now use.
And Bev, I wanted to just chat to you for a minute about this whole ESG question. I mean, what's happening? What do you think is going to happen? What should we tell the audience about ESG?
I mean, ESG is a very muddy space, really, because there's so much terminology and jargon. And really, what I presume customers want to know is whether they're investing for good or for bad. No one wants to know that they're investing with, arms companies or whatever else it is. In fact, 15 odd years ago, I used to be an analyst in a private client investment firm. And one of the funds I used to look at was the opposite of ESG, was called the Vice Fund.
I remember that.
It was a beauty. Someone had gone wild with a clip art. So there was, it was arms, booze, porn and something else. This was the pre-ESG days. Like if someone phoned up and they wanted an ethical fund or an ethical product, it was generally someone's granddaughter who cared. So that would be maybe someone in this room, and it would be fair trade coffee that they would be told they could invest in. So the market's moved massively on, thanks to initiatives like the UN-backed PRI, which is a pledge that asset managers sign up to link to the principles of responsible investing. But I think so it's a muddy space, and there will be you have to do your homework. You have to see where you want to put your money and where your morals align with that. It is also important to remember why you're investing, because there is, like, in the city at the moment, there's this big kind of idea that women only invest to save the world. We will only invest for social reasons. Actually, the first reason I would say is actually money. We're investing to make money, and I think they've forgotten that. Men out there also want to invest for good reasons as well. So I think the first thing is to look at that. The other thing is look at who you're investing in, the company you're investing through. It's not just the fund. It's not just the fund manager. It is firms whose names you see wrapped around taxis and you wonder who the hell is that planet, whatever planet that company's named after, because they often love, Greek mythology and all the rest of it. But it's looking at them, looking and seeing it, who's on the board of that company, because they're taking your money and they're making money off you. And you can decide who you invest with. So I'm on the board of a impact platform called The Big Exchange, which is an investment platform launched by The Big Issue. And they recently launched a filter purely for female fund managers, so you can find them. Now, I'm going to put this out there, but having a set of ovaries or your gender makes no difference on whether you're a good investor or not. There are lots of reasons why you can be a good investor or a bad investor, but your gender is not one of them. But they would have you think that. We are constantly being told as women, we don't know how to take risk. Well, I tell you what, I gave birth twice with no painkillers. I know how to take calculated risk, ladies. And it's not true. The thing that you need to remember is that if you find a female fund manager in the city, and at the moment only less than 10% of active money is managed by women, they are probably the cream. Because at the end of the day, if you've managed to survive in the city and you as a woman, you're going to have great performance. You're going to have to be better than the men, which is like any industry, right? We know that. So I would say go and try and find yourself some female fund managers to invest with. They may not get it right. They may not always outperform, but they probably have the skills that actually their peers may not have. So
that's great advice. I just wanted to bring it back to some other sort of financial things now, like mortgages, credit cards. Selina, there are gaps there too. How can we help overcome those gaps? How can we manage that at the moment? Mortgages have been massively in the news recently.
Again, just back to my original point, just being really cognizant of building the importance of building your own credit score at all times. So whether you're kind of a university student or whether you're about to, embark on a partnership of some sort, getting married, etc. I think we just need to be really, really cognizant of the impact of some of our decisions of, if we're not checked in with our finances, what are the kind of longer term implications of doing that? So that's what I would say. And in terms of mortgages, I think someone said on the earlier panel, it is a really scary time. At the same time, we are all in this together, but not all of us are impacted in the same way. I still need to kind of dig out. I've been trying to remember, when was the last time I remortgaged? Is my mortgage deal coming to an end? I still need to do that for myself. So, just check in and just see what's going on with yourselves financially and just continue to do that throughout your lives and whatever situation you're in is important.
Thank you. And to take it out again, what do the panel think that a future economy that prioritizes women's lives and our financial security, what would that look like? Is there one policy change that you'd like to see that you could summarize? Romi, you first.
I've got so many, and I'm going to stick to the top ones. I think on childcare, I think there needs to be better tax incentives to enable women to actually stay in work, because a lot of what we're reading is really scary. Women are giving up jobs in order to be able to stay home and look after their children. And if you want to do that, that's fantastic. But if you are forced to do it, I don't think it's fair. So I would say better tax there. And then my second one is actually around employers and employer disclosure of, what is your gender pay gap? What is your actual gender balance within your company? What is your maternity return rate? Do women come back or not? And I think being armed with this information is really, really important to women who are actively making decisions of where to work.
Yeah, quite scarily. I saw reported the other day the government's thinking about removing the need to disclose gender pay gaps. So that's definite going backwards.
That's a different panel altogether.
Bev, what's your one policy change? I think you've probably also got a list.
Getting rid of this government would be my policy change. Let's subsidise childcare, not owning cars and whatever else we're subsidising, because there's probably a load of bullshit we do. When you look at the Nordics, that's why they're actually succeeding in their societies. Look at the way we educate our children. Actually, this stuff should be in the curriculum, This should be a core part of the curriculum, part of maths. This is not an add-on. Teachers don't know how to teach it because they were never taught it. So I think those would be the things. But I am slightly cynical. I don't believe this regime want us to have that power. And well done to all of you for actually getting that power for yourselves. Pass it forward. If you have friends who don't know this stuff, make them, nudge them, kick them into, if you have children, teach them, because this is the stuff.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Right. I would really like some audience questions. There's a mic. Lady here first.
Hi, everyone. My name's Christina. I do agree with you. I think education is key, but I'm quite a newbie of how I can control my finances. How do we seep through all the noise that is out there, or the information that we are bombarded with? What is a good and quality information? What is the true information? Are there any resources that we can follow?
Well, you know what I'm going to say. But Romi, what do you say?
I do think you should identify companies that resonate with you. I mean, at PensionBee, we publish a lot about pensions in particular. We think it's really important for people to read and just spend time with the information. There's no shortcut to doing that. But I think that there are a lot of companies out there who can help. And of course, Vestpod. I mean, that's why we're all here.
I've got 8-year-old twin girls, and I mean, culturally, I come from a similar background as Bev, and we are taught about women don't think about money; it's greedy. And so I've got twin girls, and one always is happy to part with her money, and the other one is like, "I'm saving it because once you get poor, you need the money, so I'm going to save it." And I just feel like I want to do that education, but then obviously the awareness has to start from me. But you as moms, some of you, how do you do this at a level where you can teach an 8-year-old to think about the money mindset and things like that? I know it's very complicated, but I'd love some tips.
I do all the traditional things, I'll be honest. We have piggy banks, and we put money in there, and I'm going to admit it, but I recently opened a trading account for my 5-year-old, and together we chose stocks that he has heard of, and we invested. I think it was literally about £10, and I'm teaching him that sometimes it goes up and sometimes it goes down, and over the long run it goes up. I think sometimes it has to start at home because it's going to take a long time for the government to do the things we want them to do.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Right. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Charisse. And I was wondering if I could ask about reconciling my politics and social beliefs with my desire to gain more capital. I'm a musician and I'm starting to level up a bit, but the musicians I'm trying to pay will equally be like, F the establishment. Also, that fee is way too small for you for me to work with you. And I mean, yeah, being the daughter of a politician as well has left me being like very inspired by the social activism, but also as the first daughter left with the burden of caring for that mother who has been anti-establishment. So sorry, it's a bit personal, but it's, I want to be ethical, but also I'm getting quieter about my desire to earn capital because the people in my community are anti-capitalist. But to protect them, I want to get capital. So what do I do?
Selina, is that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, I think money is a tool at the end of the day. We can't do anything if we don't have any money. We can't help others. We can't grow our businesses. We can't, live the lifestyles we want unless we have some sort of money. And I think what Bev said before about, we're talking about ESG, but, yes, we want to do everything with a good cause, but at the same time, why are you working? Why are you a freelance musician? It's for the passion, but equally you have to pay your bills. You have to do what you need to do to get by. So I think, it doesn't have to be either or.
Cheers.
So shackles off.
Thank you. I think we've got time for a couple more.
Hi, hello. I just had a question around how do you guys personally balance financial enjoyment versus like financial resilience? I always find it something so hard to balance is enjoying the money you make, but then feeling guilty about not saving enough, etc.
That's a great question. Bev, let's start with you.
I'm guessing you're a lot younger than me. And I think that balance changes as you get older and maybe your pot of money grows or your security grows around it. It's a skill we all need to learn. And the way I suppose I balance it, what I found in my life is when I've ended up with more things, I've actually ended up not enjoying them. So actually having less things and doing less things, but doing them quality things and doing them well means that I can enjoy and not just spend, if that makes sense. Instead of going out every day, maybe going out once, but doing it really well means that I can enjoy the 6 in my pajamas at home. So I would say if you feel like you don't have the balance in your savings versus what you're spending, is put it down on paper, look at it in front of you. Once you can see it in front of you and what's going out, all of a sudden the things that you were spending on maybe don't feel as important, and you'll be able to recognize what is important to you. And then you'll have the security of knowing you're actually putting stuff away. And actually, there's something about watching that pie grow and watching that compound interest grow on that pie. And all of a sudden, you kind of enjoy that. It becomes a bit of a game. So that's what my thing would be. Just if you know what it looks like, then you're more likely to have that balance.
Romi, have you got anything to add to balance?
Yes, I think about it in terms of investing in your salary of the future. And that's what I would focus on sorting out. One of the things that we've learned at PensionBee is that people have this anxiety about later on. They don't know what it looks like. They don't know what they're going to do. They don't know how they're going to get the money for that. And I think once you have some comfort that you will have a salary in the future, it really opens up the path to enjoyment today, because that anxiety will go away.
Selina, what do you tell your clients about this?
I think it's quite interesting because there is an incredible amount of guilt, isn't there, when it comes to money and what we're doing. We're just made to feel so guilty if we start investing and we make a mistake, if we have a bad month and we overspend, we kind of kick ourselves so much. And I find it so frustrating. I absolutely hate it. I think we need to just, as women, not be so hard on ourselves, number one, because number two, a lot of men are allowed to make mistakes. They're allowed to make financial mistakes. They're allowed to, overspend, and they're not feeling guilty about it. So we need to, not feel guilty about it either. At the same time, managing money doesn't mean that you don't have any fun or enjoyment with it. I always talk about like a budgeting method called 50, 30, 20. And I like to highlight that one because it's got an actual wants category in it when you are budgeting. So you can put some money aside to enjoy the things that you like today. And at the same time, you've also got a category for savings in the future. But I think, we definitely need to get rid of the guilt that we feel when it comes to money and money mistakes and investing mistakes, because, a lot of people, average white men, as they say, sorry to any white men that are in the room, they get away with so much, and we always feel really, really guilty if we do anything different or do anything or make any mistakes, and we shouldn't.
Thank you. That's a great thing to end on. Thank you so much to the panel, and thank you all.
Don't forget about getting your early bird ticket for this year's festival, which is held on Sunday, March 3rd at Coco in Camden. Hit follow or subscribe to The Wallet on whatever platform you're on so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next Thursday!